So this is your video on different types of angles. We're going to start filling in some vocabulary for what an angle is. An angle is formed by two rays with a common endpoint. So remember last time we talked about a line goes on forever in both directions. A segment is stopped on both sides, and a ray is stopped on one side and then goes forever in the other direction. So it has one endpoint and then an arrow on the other side. So if you have two rays that both start at the same point, then that forms an angle. So the common endpoint is called the vertex, and the rays are called the arms of the angle. So this is your vertex point, kind of like when we did the parabolas, the U shape, and that center was the vertex, same kind of thing. So we name an angle using 3 letters, and the middle letter must always be the vertex. So this angle right here, we could call it ABC, or we could call it CBA, but that vertex has to be the one in the middle. You can use a single letter if there's only one angle located at the vertex. So for example, I could also just call this angle B. But if there was another ray coming off of that, I couldn't do that because you wouldn't know which one it was. But if there's only one, you can just call it by the vertex. So that could be angle B. And so this is what I was just talking about. It's measure of angle. This little thing means angle. Measure of angle, that's the symbol for angle. ABC is 60 degrees. So types of angles, this one is called acute, which means it's less than 90 degrees. So ACUT, I didn't write that very well. ACUTE, acute is less than 90. This is obtuse, which means it's greater than 90 degrees. And then this is a right angle, which is 90 degrees. And we put that little box in there to mean that it's 90 degrees. So it's like a corner, a 90-degree corner. So name the vertex of this angle. The vertex is the one in the middle, so that's K. Name the sides of the angle. So again, when you're naming a ray, you have to start with the endpoint and then go to the arrow. So the sides are KL and KJ. So it has to go in that order. For a line or a segment, it doesn't matter which order you do it in, but for array, it has to start with that endpoint, or the vertex. So 3 ways to name the angle. So you can call it angle K. And I was taught to put a line through my angle symbol. You don't have to put that there. You could just put angle K, like the way that it looks right here. You could call it angle JKL, or you could call it angle LKJ. But that K has to go in the middle. And then classify the angle. It is bigger than 90 degrees in here, so obtuse. Now, this has a lot going on here. Name the vertex of angle 2. So this is angle 2, so the vertex is T. The T is going to be the vertex for all of these because it's in the center of everything. So that's T. Name the sides of angle 4. So here's angle 4, so this one in here. So your sides would be TW. So TW is this side of angle 4, and then TZ. So again, starting with the vertex point. So TW and TZ for angle 4, which is this one. All right, another name for angle 3. So there's 2 different ways we could call that. Angle 3 is this one in here. We could say UTZ. Or we could say angle ZTU. So again, it doesn't matter. They mean the same thing, but that T has to go in the center. All right, another name for angle 1. So again, same thing. You could do it 2 different ways. YTX, so angle YTX, or angle XTY for angle 1 in them. All right, name the sides of angle 5. So angle 5 is this one. So our sides are TY and TW. My arrow symbol doesn't look real great there. Oh, geez, I made it worse. So TY and TW. All right, so we're going to classify acute, obtuse, or right angles. So YTW. So let's see, YTW, that's angle 5, so that is a right angle. YTU. So we're looking at this one here, right here, YTU, that's angles 1 and 2 together. That's bigger than 90, so that's obtuse. XTU is just angle 2, XTU, so just angle 2 in there, that's smaller than 90, so acute. And then WTU is this one, WTU. So that's angles 3 and 4 together. That is over 90 degrees. So obtuse. All right, so turning to the side here, we have other types of angles besides acute, obtuse, and right. Vertical angles are two angles across from each other on intersecting lines, and they are always congruent, which means that they equal each other. So basically, if you draw a big old X, I call this angle 1 and this angle 2, those are vertical angles. They just go across from each other. These two would also be vertical angles. Just if they make an X, the two across from each other are going to be vertical angles and they are congruent. Adjacent just means next to each other. So two angles next to each other and share a common side. So an example would be something that looks like this. You have angle 1 and angle 2. See how they're right next to each other? Those aren't necessarily congruent though. They could be any measurements. All right, complementary means that they add up to 90 degrees. So if you have an angle here that is 30 degrees, and you have another angle here that is, it's not really to scale, 60 degrees, they add up to 90. So as long as they add up to 90. Now they could also be adjacent. So like another example of how that could look, if you make a right angle, put that little box in there to show it's a right angle. Angle 1 and angle 2 would be complementary. They add up to 90. So they could be right next to each other or not, but as long as they add up to 90, they're complementary. Supplementary means they add up to 180. So same thing, if I do one angle that is 100 degrees, and then I do another angle over here that's 80 degrees, those are supplementary. So they add up to 180. Now, if they are next to each other, kind of the way that I did this one, we have a special name for that, which is linear pair. So they're supplementary, but they're also adjacent right next to each other. So if you have a straight line and then angle 1 and angle 2 like this, those are going to add up to 180, and they're supplementary, so they're a linear pair. So it makes a line, and there's two of them. Line, pair, linear pair, there's two of them. A straight line is 180 degrees. All right, so this all is 180 degrees. All right, on this side, we're going to identify types of angles, but you could check off more than one of these. So you're going to have to look through them all. So 1 and 2, I'm just going to go through all of them. They are not adjacent because they're not next to each other. They are vertical. I don't know what any of the measurements in here, so I can't really say if they add up to 90 or 180. Again, complementary adds up to 90, supplementary adds up to 180. So I can't really say anything about that. And they do not make a line, so that would be it. They are congruent to each other, which is not a choice there, but they are congruent as well. All right, here, 1 and 2. Now we have this right angle in here. So if this side is a right angle, this side is also going to be a right angle. So we do have that. So 1 and 2, they are adjacent. They're next to each other. They're not vertical because that would be like this. That would be across from each other. They do add up to 90, so they're complementary. Well, if they add up to 90, they do not add up to 180, so they are not this. They are not a linear pair. That's kind of tricky because this is a line here, but we're really only looking at this half of it. We're only looking at the right angle there, so just these two. All right, number 3, 1 and 2, they are adjacent to each other, so they're not vertical. Again, across from each other would be vertical. They do not add up to 90. They do add up to 180 though. A straight line is worth 180 degrees. So they add up to 180 and they make a linear pair because this is a line and they are a pair of angles. So line, pair, linear pair. All right, 1 and 2, they are adjacent. They're next to each other. They are not vertical. That would mean they're across from each other. Now, I can't say they're complementary. This almost looks like a right angle, but unless you have that little box in there, you don't know. So I don't know what they add up to. So I can't choose either of those, and they do not form a straight line. So it's not a linear pair. All right, 1 and 2 here, they are not adjacent, they're not next to each other. They are across from each other, so they are vertical. They're not gonna add up to 90 or 180 in this case. Or well, are they? Let me see. These mean that these are congruent. So let's see, if this is 90, this would also be 90. If I split that in half, these are each 45. Oh, you know what it is? So if this is 45, then angle 2 is also going to be 45. So they actually do add up to 90. So they are complementary. I didn't catch that. So since you've got this 90 degree in here and these are congruent, the little tick marks mean they're the same. Those are each 45. And so vertical angles are the same. This is also going to be 45, and 45 and 45 is 90. So that'll be complementary. So if they add up to 90, they obviously do not add up to 180, and they do not form a line. So they are not a linear pair. This is a linear pair next to each other like that. All right, so 1 and 2, they are not next to each other, so they're not adjacent. They're across from each other, so they're vertical. Let's see, we have this right angle here. Now, if that's a right angle, that means all the rest of these are going to be right angles as well. So that means angle 1 is 90 degrees. And since they're vertical, they're congruent. So that is also 90 degrees. 90 and 90 is 180. So they add up to 180. So they are supplementary, but they are not a linear pair. They would have to be next to each other like these two to be a linear pair. They don't form a straight line. So just vertical and supplementary. So the next thing is to do the Desmos activity. You're going to go on to Schoology, 4th quarter, unit 12. There's a link there. So you're going to do that. And then you're going to do 12.2 delta method.